How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Dreaded Haggard podcast. I know it's been a while, but I figured we'd take an opportunity here in this podcast to actually talk about the massive amount of balance changes coming with the Twisted and the Twilight. So for those of you guys who are listening, I'll do my best to really highlight the important notes, but we're not going to go over every single micro change like 1 + 1 this, -1 that. We will, of course, be having it here on screen. So if you guys are watching the podcast here on YouTube, you're going to be able to see most of the changes. But again, there will be a link to the actual podcast blog on the Total War website in the description as well as the comment section below. But nonetheless, we're going to be going over all of the really pertinent changes, faction by faction. This could be a relatively long one because I was looking through this bad boy and it is thick. It is thick as Thorat, that is for sure. This is a really massive amount of changes, and honestly is going to be a huge shakeup because obviously coming with the DLC, you guys have seen in the previous weeks the significance of the mass changes, right? Footlords are way better. Infantry are better at blocking up monstrous things. That's really going to change up the metagame for a lot of factions, like Dwarves, for example. Obviously really benefit from this, a faction that was heavily abused by chariots in the past, but it's a crazy good patch for sure. There's a lot of neat stuff. Anyways, let's begin by looking at the Beastmen. For the Beastmen, micro changes, to say the least. Almost nothing. And I think this is very much indicative that the Beastmen probably will be getting a big look over with an upcoming DLC. I don't think the Beastmen are going to get too much bread here in this particular patch. Khazrak got like 300 more HP on his chariot. He got some hit points, obviously, on the chariot. Yeah, you can see. So the Beast Lord got plus 300 HP more or less, or a little bit less than that. Khazrak also got the same thing. And the melee splash attack changed from 4 to 6, so a little bit better splash damage and more HP there for the haggard old Beastmen. So nothing really to talk about. Now, Bretonnia is one that is... I love how like all the memes in the community are like making fun of the Beastmen, you know, like... Oh, there's a couple meme channels I watch, which Okoy and Seraph, and they just do such a good job just making fun of Khazrak. And I feel like these patch notes do the same thing. It's like, here, Khazrak, have a bone. Granted, Beastmen aren't like a bad faction per se. The nerfs to summons have really, especially Manticore Summon, that was like one of their staples. Definitely hurts them in competitive play. I still think Beastmen have a couple decent matchups, but you have to, in my experience, I mean, I guess you can do like kind of mouth breathing, you know, chaos spawn rushes and things like that. But generally speaking, Beastmen, I think they're just going to be like put on the shelf. It's like when you buy that, like, you know, you got your main collection of miniatures, 40k fantasy, whatever, and then you have your second army you want to start. I feel like that's what Creative Assembly is doing. They're like, all right, we'll start the Beastmen, painting the Beastmen army when they get their DLC. Until then, let's focus on what we're working on here. So Bretonnia got some changes. Barded Warhorse got a little bit more mass, which is cool. Certainly will help them in the new meta of very high mass infantry. Men-at-Arms with Polearms did get a cost decrease, kind of cool. I don't know if you'll see them even with that minor change. Obviously, you know, spearmen are pretty, you know, cheap, and you get your armor piercing in other ways, I think, than, you know, the Bretonnian infantry, with the exception of infantry to infantry. So Foot Squires are probably one of the big winners of this DLC here. Foot Squires did get a +1 melee attack, a charge bonus of +4, which is significant, +4 melee defense, which is pretty substantial. And on top of that, they got a minor cost increase of 25 gold. I do think Foot Squires are going to make a bit of a comeback. If you guys were watching, of course, the Ever-Chosen Invitational, you probably saw that Fistek in the Grand Finals was able to use the Foot Squires to great effect against Dwarves, right? Having +4 melee defense in a Dwarf Warrior fight or fighting Miners, that can make a big difference between you being hit and not being hit. So the Foot Squires, I definitely think, are a big winner here on the Bretonnian roster. A couple minor changes for Mounted Yeoman, leadership, charge bonus, you know, little buffs here and there. A little bit of extra AP damage, actually. Yeoman went to 4 to 6, which is kind of cute, but, you know, Yeoman probably you still won't see him too often. Yeoman Archer's got a leadership buff and some extra HP, not really pertinent. The Wardens of Montfort also got similar changes. Nothing really to look at there. Damsel on a Warhorse got their charge bonus reduced. I think this is something to just go in line with the Fey Enchantress, basically, because they nerfed the Fey Enchantress's damage output, and I think that just kind of spread over to the Damsels. So if you look here, you can see the Damsel and the Unicorn has gotten a bunch of micro changes, melee defense increase, charge bonus. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, so the Damsel and the Unicorn got some perks. Okay, got it. Yeah, again, acceleration change, deceleration change, walk speed. It's all like relatively insignificant. Fey Enchantress on foot did gain some melee attack, and she lost a lot of melee defense, actually going from 42 to 34. That's pretty substantial. Definitely going to make her quite a bit easier to kill, but as you saw in the Ever-Chosen, Fey Enchantress is still hands down the best pick on the Bretonnian roster in most matchups. Having a cheap Mortis engine with a pretty good free item in the Chalice of Potions, well, not free, but a good item that she can pick, and Lore of Life, it's just extremely valuable, especially on her Unicorn because she's so fast. On her Unicorn, Silverin, she did lose melee attack, or gain melee attack? No, she actually gained it, 42 to 46. It's pretty cute. And the Companion's got a minor cost increase. Now, just to summarize Bretonnia, the Foot Squire change is pretty substantial. I would say that's probably the biggest change here. And on top of that, the minor nerfs to the Fey Enchantress. I mean, but very minor, mind you. And they're mostly when she's on foot. So yeah, it's really, because you can see the Fey Enchantress foot has had her melee defense from 42 to 34. And it seems like on the Unicorn, I don't think that's going to be as much of a factor. So again, keep an eye on foot squires. They could be something to shake up the meta. Lokir Felhart. Now, this guy, during the quarantine has been hitting the gym pretty hard. You can see the stat changes for him. Lokir Felhart, melee attack changed from 65 to 60. Charge bonus went up. Melee defense went up. So you lose a little bit of melee attack, which, for the charge bonus and the melee defense. He also got more bonus for his infantry. So you can already see the direction this is going. This is buffs. Despite losing 5 melee attack, it's whatever. That's still pretty good. Melee splash attack damage. And this is obviously him on foot. So there's going to be other variables pertaining to his dragon we'll be taking a look at here in a moment. And the melee splash attack changes from 4 to 8. Wow, that's pretty good. Might make him a little bit more of a viable pick against dwarves. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what other factions Lokir could be good. I mean, Dark Elves have Marathi on foot, which is kind of with her debuffs, she's just so much better than someone like Lokir, I feel. But it still does make Lokir quite a bit better. He gets a little bit of a run speed increase and a little bit of a charge piece. So buffs overall. And when he's on his dragon, he now has 61 melee attack instead of 57. And his melee defense was nerfed slightly. So the dragon, it is what it is. But Foot Lokir definitely has, gotten some substantial buffs. I still don't think he's going to be seeing play in the kind of higher echelons of competitive play. But generally for casual play and just kind of messing around in quick battles or just throwing him in every now and then, it's cute. So Zarkin form damage changed. Oh, okay, look at this. So Malice Darkblade in Zarkin, which is his demonic form. Zarkin form damage amount changed from 45 to 9. That's good. If it's what I think it is, it's talking about how much damage he takes to himself. That's really good. 45 to 9 is substantial. I mean, that's going to be a long, long-lasting demon boy, especially considering he does have the means to heal. You may be able to kind of outscale that, so that's cool. Zarkin form damage chance changed from 0.5 to 1. Okay, so it looks like there's a chance for the damage to take place and kind of an increment here, and it's just got a little bit more frequent, but I think the fact that it's only 9 to 45, it still ratios out to be a better deal for you. Means on average, a minus 60% in the amount of damage caused by Zarkin form. That's big. Yeah, 60%. So they did the math for us there, which is really cool. Malice in competitive, he's not a bad lord. I think if Malice was on the Beastmen roster or different factions like that, he could probably see some actual play, especially if Malice was on a faction that had access to healing. So if he had Lore of Life on his roster and could be regrowthed while he's in his demonic form, that shit could be actually pretty scary. Certainly better. I'll give him a try. I mean, that's a big change. Because that was really the problem. He just died so quickly and you didn't really get to experience the fun of his demonic form. So it is what it is. All right, Cold One character mounts. Run speed, increase, and entity mass. Wow, that's a big mass increase. And again, I think they're buffing the mass of certain things just to kind of compensate for infantry getting a not mass increase, but changing the way that you push through infantry and things like that. A Crone Hellebron, she causes fear on foot and got a little melee defense. On her Dark Steed, pretty much the same thing. Nothing exciting. The Cauldron of Blood got a little bit of a melee attack buff, and also, that's a big change. Crone Hellebron on the Cauldron of Blood, and I have a feeling this is going to be something we see across the board now that I see it here. Crone Hellebron did get 155 to 245. That is a big armor-piercing difference. I wouldn't say it's going to be the big game changer, but that's a nice change for Crone. Definitely might be worth a look, especially since there's no correlating cost increase to go with that. So, some delicious Earl Grey tea there. Death Hag on the Cauldron got some melee attack and melee defense buffs. Yeah, Dark Elves needed some buffs. Their roster is very squishy. A lot of their base HP on different units is low, so you certainly need to compensate with stats. Also, on top of that, they're one of the few factions, aside from Soul Stealer and things like that, they don't really have access to healing. So, very much a glass cannon faction. So it's nice to see these changes. Death Hag also got a huge AP increase. Holy shit. 80 to 205. That's really good. So plus 2 melee attack, plus 1 melee defense. The base damage changed from 180 to 85, but in exchange for a massive amount of AP damage, which always makes it better in my opinion. The Sorceress, just a mass increase. Dark Steed got mass increase. The Dreadlord, just all minor mass increases. Now this is stuff that's actually relatively pertinent. Dreadlords, or not Dreadlords, oh, we're not at the infantry yet. Okay, Dreadlord got a minor cost increase, but with how good Marathi is, I don't think you're going to be seeing this. But it's cute, a little bit of extra combat stat prowess on their melee attack, and melee defense actually got lowered. I don't know why you would do that. Just keep them as they are. They're already not played and already considered to be very weak. So that's a little bit strange to me. Malekith got a melee attack increase, but it lost a little bit of melee defense. I guess that's fine. I mean, yeah, I'd actually probably prefer to have the melee defense on Malekith, just because he's often caught in a blob and Soul Stealer is what saves him. So him lasting longer is more important to me, but it is what it is. The dragon got the same change as well. So melee attack getting buffed, melee defense. It seems like to be a recurring theme here with Dark Elves. All right, ground statistic effect changed from large to large. I have no idea what this means in the Feral Man score, but in the weapon length changed from 4 to 6. Okay, so something I don't really fully understand, but that's fine. Coldland Dread Knights got a melee attack buff, additional hit points. That's good. Hit points are like what Dark Elves need. Hit points and stats, obviously. Additional hit points change from 104 to 122. That's pretty good. That's not bad at all. You know, that's a decent little increase. And a minor cost increase to accompany that, but I actually think that's good. They got a little melee attack, and they also got, plus what? Not quite 20 HP, but a little bit less, 18 HP on each model. That's significant. That's definitely nice, especially when you factor in the armor and the damage mitigation. That's going to mean, each model is going to be fighting quite a bit longer, especially against chaff units. Knights of the Ebon Claw, obviously got the same increases. Bleak Swords got a nice increase, 34 to 36 in melee attack, charge bonus, who cares? So yeah, they got 2 melee attack, 2 melee defense, 1 charge bonus. Dark Shards got, let's see, a little bit more distance on the projectile calibration. I don't know what that means exactly, but I'll take it. They're buffs. They also got a cost reduction. Dark Shards are not used terribly often, but it's nice to see little micro changes like this for this faction. I don't think Dark Elves are a bad faction by any means. I think they're just very tough to play, and they do have a fair amount of matchups in which I think they struggle in the contemporary meta. Factions, see, off the top of my head, I can't really think of matchups that Dark Elves are like heavily favored in. There was a time when Warhammer 2 was, in its inception that they were pretty solid, but I think they've kind of fallen from grace. And in terms of being a top tier faction, I would probably say overall that Dark Elves are like a B tier faction. I think that's kind of the layer in which they dwell. All right, so Bolt Fiends got changes as well. Blackheart Corsairs got a charge bonus increase. Dread Spears got the same thing, so they got melee attack and melee defense, much like the other base units. So overall in this faction, I would say the Dread Knights getting an HP increase is quite good. Bleak Swords and Dread Spears, those are the real breadwinners in my opinion. Just those kind of core changes. And also it'll be interesting to try out the Cauldrons now that they've had the change to their armor piercing values. See how pertinent they are in other matchups. Maybe against like Dawi or against Chaos. It might be a little bit better against the infantry. Granted, Chaos doesn't always bring elite infantry against Druki anyways. Now, Dwarves. This is one I've been very interested in. I consider myself to be somewhat of a Dwarf main. I kind of go back and forth on playing them in competitive play. But Dwarves, let's take a look. So Ironbreakers got a bit of a nerf, actually. They lost melee defense, and they got plus 100 cost. They lost their blasting charge, a little damage off their blasting charges. Yeah, just a nerf across the board on Ironbreakers, which I guess that's for Norgrimlings. Let's see. Okay, no, regular Ironbreakers pretty much got the exact same nerf. It's kind of strange, to be honest. I don't know. I'm trying to think like why you would nerf Ironbreakers. I mean, they're a niche unit. You did see them in competitive play. And obviously in campaign, they're like one of the better units for Dwarves for just like holding while your organ guns and other pieces just eviscerate the AI. But yeah, strange nerf. I think why the Dwarves might be seeing some nerfs in this particular patch is because the changes to collision mechanics, which we've talked about over and over here in this video. Being able to run chariots and monsters through, like, it's so hard to run through dwarf infantry now, and I think that's partially why maybe you're seeing some minor nerfs to the dwarves, because as a faction overall, since they have some of the highest mass infantry in the game, I think it's kind of a give and take there. So it's fine, honestly. I don't use Ironbreakers much anyways, so frankly I don't really care. Grombrindle the White Dwarf. Now this guy's big pimpin' now. I actually played him in a stream today. I played against a very solid tournament player using High Elves, and I was able to use Grombrindle to great effect. The fact that he's a foot character, he doesn't get knocked over as much. So he's unbreakable now. Gromby's unbreakable, which is freaking awesome, dude. It's something I've been like just secretly pining for, and like I never asked for it, but it just happened. I'm like, all right. Melee defense got buffed. His HP, he got plus like 800 HP more or less, which is crazy. He got an armor buff, he's unbreakable, and he also got a minor cost increase. But like for all that, unbreakable, extra HP, better melee defense, like what a steal. I think Grombrindle probably is going to be the best lord in the dwarf roster now. The fact that he doesn't get knocked over as much, he's unbreakable, a great combatant, he has an AoE slow in the flash bomb. Gromby, just all day, just chef's kiss that right there. That's the good shit. Ungrim got some buffs as well. He lost a little bit of melee attack, but he did get melee defense. His base damage got lowered, but I believe he got extra AP values on top of that. Yeah, so cool changes really, but honestly, it's not quite like Gromby just feels better than Ungrim in like every way now. Yes, Ungrim has anti-large, and maybe from a cost effectiveness perspective, but having slows on the dwarf roster is so good. But yeah, that's cool. Ungrim's fine. Slayers lost a tiny bit of melee attack, which they kind of were overkilling anyways, and this is for giant slayers. but they lost some charge bonus, but they got melee defense too, which is cool. They got extra HP per model, 100 to 110, which is quite nice. So yeah, nice little buff. Base weapon damage. Damage went up aside from the melee attack. Nice little buff to Giant Slayers, honestly. Getting a little bit more durability means they won't like die as easily to chaff. I like that. So nerfs to blasting charges are another highlight of this. So you'll notice with miners, they got a little bit of a charge bonus, which is quite cute. I guess miners charging out of their mines with their pickaxes is warranted. But yeah, changes to the blasting charges and things like that. Certainly something to look at. Hammers got a charge bonus up to 24 from 18. Same with the Peak Gate Guard. Peak Gate Guard, got some minor tweaks, which are kind of insignificant. And a lot of random charge bonuses. If you look here, you can see charge bonus on like Grumbling Guard and Longbeards, which is cool. Longbeards with great weapons, a little bit of a buff there. It doesn't hurt. And leadership changes to the Dwarven Artillery. Very strange. 66 to 64. Like, I don't know why they would lower the leadership on Thunderers by like 2. Maybe just to bring it in line with other aspects of the roster, but a bunch of weird leadership changes, to be honest. And it looks like Grudge Throwers got a little bit of a base explosion damage change from 40 to 50. Lost a little bit of AP to be more of a generalist unit. Goblobber, again, same thing. All these like random ass leadership changes. I don't know what's going on there, but nonetheless, big changes for the Dwarf roster, in my opinion, of course, are the knockback mechanics, which aren't listed here. It just came with the DLC, and it was on the previous patch notes. But the Grombrindle change is super sexy. That tickles my inner dwarf pickle here, and I like that quite a bit. I think that's really nice. So next we got Empire. Halberd's got a cost reduction and replaced charge defense versus all with charge defense versus large. Okay, so they lost the charge defense against all, but 75 gold off them certainly makes them a little bit more of a bargain. Archlector got a mass increase on foot. Nothing that cool. Yeah, just honestly, and then Karl Franz got a better splash attack. When he's on his Pegasus, he got like a buff to his splash attacks, which is, you're never going to see Karl Franz on his Pegasus. You do occasionally. There's some Empire hipsters who like to do that, but dude, come on, Deathclaw, man. You got to bring the Deathclaw. It's where it's at. So, yeah, Empire, really nothing of note. Halberd's getting a cost reduction. That's about it. So Greenskins got some nerfs across the board, I think. Pre-DLC, Greenskins were considered to be probably a top-tier faction. I still think they are, even with these changes. So AP Gloony's got a cost increase. Crimson Killa's got a cost decrease, which is kind of cool. Black Orc Big Boss got a cost increase, which I think was warranted. The Black Orc Big Boss is very powerful. He's basically like having an Orc War Boss as a hero character. So I think having him be a little bit more expensive is probably justified. And on his War Boar, his missile block chance is lowered, so he no longer has like just this heavy-duty shield. And his cost is increased on his War Boar, and then it just randomly says Grom the Paunch in these patch notes, which is pretty funny. And melee weapon length changed from 5 to 8, so I guess he's got more reach. Stone Trolls got a nerf to their missile resist of 5%, so 30 to 25. Still going to be a great unit. Don't worry about it, Greenskin players. And Forest Goblin Spider Riders got a little bit less HP, which is fine. River Trolls got a minor buff, plus 2 melee attack. I still don't think you're ever going to see them with the exception of just Swamp Things because they cause terror, which means, therefore, they're immune to terror. So against factions like the Empire Counts and other spooky boys, having an unbreakable troll unit can be very, very good. All right, Savage Orc Biggins, knock ignore chance changed from 15 to 0. And Orc Boarboy Biggins, knock ignore chance. Yeah, so just kind of insignificant changes. Spider Hatchlings got a little bit of a minor change. Not of note. Death's Creepers got a little bit less HP. Forest Goblin Spider Riders got less HP. And yeah, now it's talking about Lava Arachnok, which of course is a campaign unit. So we're not going to go into that too much. The Swamp Things got their melee attack increased just to coincide with other River Trolls. And now we're on to the High Elves. So let me move my chair up. Holy shit. This is a lot of patch notes. This is a lot. Damn, son. I mean, there's got to be like a translated version down here. Let me look real quick. Oh my god. No, this is legit all changes. Holy this is a lot. Damn, dude. Damn. All right, High Elves. Alariel the Radiant. Melee defense lord. Great. Any nerfs to Larry is good for me. She's just so omnipotent with the High Elves in terms of competitive picks. Like, she's so much better than the other ones with her Star of Avalorn, so I am welcoming these changes for sure. Mount projectile intersection radius changed from 130 to 120, and mount entity radius changed from 1 point. Okay, so it's a nerf. -7 melee defense. That's pretty big. Noble on an eagle got a cost reduction. You're still probably not going to see them on eagles because they lack armor piercing, so you're probably just still going to see them on chariots and maybe on horseback if you're feeling a little bit spicy. The projectile intersection radius for the eagles changed. Again, just all insignificant. The Ilthamar chariot got a cost... Wait, what? Why did the Ilthamar chariot get a cost increase? What? That's so weird. The Elfmar chariots, unless I'm like confusing it with the other chariot, which is the Tyrannok chariot, if I'm not mistaken, they're both like not very good. That's very, very strange. Well, I don't play high elves. So, I don't know him too well, but it is what it is. So Teclis got, on his bird, he lost 15% missile resist. Wow, so it went from 15 to 0. He also lost some HP. Wow, that's a pretty significant for sure. I mean, Peklis was really obnoxious to kill. With his ward saves he gets from the Arcane Phoenix, it was just such a nightmare. So I'm fine with that, to be honest. Anything to like really mitigate abusive single entity play, like I'm all about that. So yeah, I think that's nice. Arcane Phoenixes got the same changes, although additional hit points. Yeah, they lost some HP, and then the radius changes that, of course, you guys saw. Omen of Asaurian lost some HP. Flamespower Phoenix got pretty much all the Phoenixes got the entity radius increase, so they're a little bit bigger in terms of like their hitbox, and then they got the projectile intersection radius kind of changed by 10%, so 130 to 120. I have no idea really how that comes into play. Alistair the White Lion, not really in multiplayer, so we don't care about that. The Archmage on the Elven Steed, 35 to 30. Got a little bit of an HP buff, which is cool. But yeah, you're usually going to see Archmages on Eagles. Just having the mobility for magic and being able to mitigate, ground threats and not have to worry about that. Sorry about the noise, guys. I'm just like shuffling around here. Archmage on a Tyrannok Chariot got an HP increase. Archmage on a Moondragon got a buff to his melee attack and a nerf to his melee defense. Imric on the Star Dragon, +4 melee attack and -4 melee defense. So yeah, it seems like they're going that route with like the dragons. I really feel like dragons are just not going to be as good. Like, it seems the dragons have gotten a slight buff to their melee attack, but that was never a problem. I think dragons, if anything, need more melee defense. And also with the new mass changes, dragons are way worse. Like, I think dragons are one of the biggest losers overall in the metagame. Like, you probably noticed in Everchosen, nobody brought dragons. So the one person who brought a dragon was Lotus Moon in the first game against Falcon, just got dumpstered. Yeah, I mean, with the exception of vampire counts, I think zombie dragons will still be seen because of just how pertinent they are to the vampire count playstyle. The breath attacks are obviously huge, right? Because you're holding things in place with chaff, you need those breath attacks. The Prince on the Star Dragon, same thing. Prince on a Griffin got a buff to... Okay, so the Griffin actually got a buff. Yeah, you got a melee attack buff and a melee defense buff of +2 and +4 respectively. That's actually not bad. Moondragon, Princess on a Moondragon, 46 to 50, 48 to 44. Yeah, so you can see the dragons pretty much the same across the board. And the Griffins all got respective buffs and no nerfs, which is fine. Yeah, Star Dragon lost melee attack. Oh, look at this. A Star Dragon gained 4 melee attack and then also lost melee defense. Sir Shock a lot. And those are all campaign units. Tyrion got a little bit of extra splash damage on both mounts, which I think could make him quite cool. His maximum targets before was 5, but now it's 8. That's kind of nice. Eltharion got a melee attack buff. Still not what I wanted to see with Eltharion. I think Eltharion needed a cost reduction of 100 gold. But, it is what it is. Can't complain here. So now we're on to the Lizards, another faction I'm somewhat unfamiliar with in a competitive sense. Oh, dude, game over. Meta's defined. The Basiladon with the Arc of Sotek now went up to 5 damage from 4. So it went from 4 to 5 damage with its base Vortex damage. Solar Engine got a little bit of a calibration increase from 2.5 to 3. Not really sure what that means. Nikai got a charge bonus buff and also got, almost 400 more HP. That's all right. He's still going to be kind of crappy, though, in my opinion. Lizardmen are kind of in a weird place in the competitive metagame because many of the units Lizardmen got in their DLC, if you look at they all just kind of suck, most Lizardmen players nowadays just use Chameleon Skinks, some combination of Saurus, Aslan, and then Solar Engines with some cap support. You're not really seeing the cool units like the Ancient Salamander, the Razordons. You don't see them often. There have been a couple people who've been able to make them work, like Kelly Nolly's a really, really good case of that, but it's very uncommon for sure. Tic-Tac-Toe. Run speed, acceleration, charge bonus, flying speed. He got a bunch of speed buffs. He also got a little bit of weapon length buff and a charge bonus. So buffs for Tic-Tac-Toe, not really going to come into play. You still won't see Tic-Tac-Toe in serious competitive play unless it's someone like Falcon who, if he's winning with Tic-Tac-Toe, it's generally because he's winning with everything else in his army. He's defeating his opponent so soundly in every other aspect of the game that Tic-Tac-Toe can then be allowed to thrive. It's very much if you guys play Magic the Gathering, it's like a win more card. It's like a card that, for example, if you're winning, it seems fun, like he's fast, he's an assassin. But if you're losing, it's not a card that's going to win you the game. And that's really, also a pertinent variable here in Total War Warhammer as well. Krokgar got a cost reduction on Foot. Footgar cost reduction is nice. I think that's a nice change. He got a reduction on his Cold one. His Horn one got a reduction as well. And his Big Mount, that's great. So 100 gold off all of Krokgar's variants. That could certainly be a pertinent change. I think you might see Krokar a little bit more. He was making a comeback. Hand of the Gods is great, and he's a powerful lord himself. He rides a T-Rex. What's not to like? So I really actually like that change for Krokar. I think that's quite nice. Insignificant changes to the Skink Priests and Pterodons. Chameleon Skinks. Oh, I love this. They lost 2 melee defense. Oh my god, those units are so freaking annoying. Like, nothing was worse than catching a Chameleon Skink and just not being able to kill it. So I'm all for that. Although from an actual non-biased perspective, I don't know if that was necessary. Like, really? Like, I think you could have just left it at 24. Croak got a cost reduction. All right, maybe Croak's back in the menu. A little Krokar. I mean, if you bring Croak and Krokar, you're going to be saving 250 gold from what you had before, which, you know, could almost mean another important unit or an upgrade to an existing unit. I think that's cool. Saurus Spears lost 1 base damage, but they got an extra AP, which is very good. I think that's a nice change. It makes them a little bit more effective against cavalry and monsters. And they also got a melee bonus for Slarge, +1. That's great. That's great. I like that. And yeah, the changes for Saurus Spears across the board. Ripperdactyl's got some HP. So the big changes are Krokar getting a cost reduction. You also have the Saurus Spear change, which I think is cool. A little bit of extra bonus for Slarge plus AP. And of course, Croak getting a cost reduction. But Krokar is probably the most significant change there. You know, the little Skinks losing some melee defense is certainly something. Gotrek got a cost increase. Don't really think you needed to do that. I just hope they fixed Gotrek's healing ability, because that's like his big problem. It just didn't work before. Like, he even healed other people sometimes. It was so bugged. So yeah, I don't know why they nerfed Gotrek. Wulfric on horse gets maximum, on foot and horse gets more splash attacks. All right. Ice Trolls. You see, this is like kind of telling to me. If you look at Norsca and Beastmen, neither of them, they got minimal changes. Not that they're factions that needed a ton of, Beastmen do for sure. But it makes me think that like Norsca, Beastmen, I'm curious, if we get to Chaos and there's like no changes, I think that's going to be a big tell that like we're going to be seeing those 3 factions in DLC. Like Norsca got like, yeah, just like insignificant changes to Ice Trolls, Berserkers, like knock ignore chance from 15 to 0, Brutes of the Hound, like it's just all stuff that doesn't really matter. Yeah, and the Frail Manscore got yeah, some minor stuff. It's really nothing. Norsca didn't get any really important changes. Skaven Slaves lost some melee attack. They lost some melee defense. That's fine. Honestly, Skaven Slaves like sometimes perform a little bit better than they should. So who cares? Skaven Slave Slingers. Yeah, there's some like bugs in the patch notes you can see here. It just randomly says Warlord with a Bonebreaker. I think that was supposed to go right here. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So Skaven Slaves lost 8 to 7. Warlord on the Bonebreaker. Oh, that's nice. You got some buffs. You're still not going to see them. The Skaven Legendary Lords are so goddamn good. You have Throt, you have Ikit, Skrolk. You're never going to see the Bonebreaker unless somebody's really trying to just like mess around, I think. Or, I mean, is maybe trying to do something you don't expect, but like it's not like there's some big benefit from a Bonebreaker Warlord. So, yeah, who cares? Skaven got a mass increase on their Plague Priest on foot and their Grey Seer on foot. Queek Headtaker got buffs. Ooh, +3 melee attack, +1 melee defense, and more splash damage. Queek is happy about that. Queek is actually quite good against, like when you're expecting an enemy Footlord, oh man, Queek can just dominate them. He destroys Sigvald. He destroys all the Dwarf Lords, more or less. It's a pretty even fight with the Dwarf Lords, but he's pretty cost effective there. That's cool. And the Triads, wait, what? Oh, that's the decoy. They basically just made it so the decoy has 0 on all its respective combat stats. So I don't know why that matters. It didn't do any damage anyways, I don't think. All right, now we're on to the Tomb Kings. Settra the Imperishable and the War Sphinx. And there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's actually a bug with Settra right now where he, when he's on his Chariot of the Gods, I could have sworn I saw this. He seems to be able to be terror routed, and he doesn't count as undead. It's a very, very strange bug. As a matter of fact, we can jump in here, guys, and check it out real quick. So let's go to Tomb Kings. So for anyone listening right now, we're going to check out the Tomb Kings. Okay. Yeah, okay. He causes fear. He has crumbling. Disintegrating. Yeah. But then if we go here, look, we put him on the horse, and then he now has the undead trait. We put him on the Chariot of the Gods, no undead trait. Holy shit, that is actually really bad. Like, now Settra can be terror routed, he can be broken. I think. That's really bad. They need to give Settra the undead trait back. Because, like, him on the Chariot is really cool and actually can be pretty powerful, but that is a substantial issue. Hopefully Creative Assembly sees that. But if they don't, maybe I'll make a post on Reddit or something. Because that's like a really big problem. I hope we don't have to go through a whole patch of him like that, because that's going to be really, really crappy, to be honest. All right, so let's close out the Warhammer. All right. So, Khemerian War Sphinx, 34 to 38, melee defense decreased. It seems like that's like a lot of the big monsters in the game. They're buffing melee attack and lowering melee defense. It's, you know, you see it with the Khemerian Sphinx. The Necro Sphinx, the exact same thing. Loses melee defense, +3, -3. Skeleton Horseman got a little bit of extra AP damage. That's nice. Khalida got some splash damage. And Khalida on the Serpent gets more splash attack, and then also armor. Ooh, wow. That's actually pretty big. Khalida up to 110 armor is significant. Plus extra splash damage. Might be worth a look. We actually did see that in the Everchosen. Fistek, with his Tomb Kings, he played against the Vampire Counts of Aerocrastic and was able to win that game. And he did use Khalida on the Serpent. So maybe he was aware of some of the changes and did notice and thought it might be pertinent in that matchup. Interesting. So now we're on to the Vampire Counts. So Tomb King's really nothing of significance other than the melee attack buffs and melee defense debuffs for the big monsters, and Khalida, of course, getting a little bit of a armor buff is cool. Animated Hulks getting a buff across the board to their run speed, to their charge speed, and also to their melee attack. Still probably not going to see them too much. Now, the big thing to take into account is in multiplayer, you have 120 models on the gunnery mobs, but basically the patch notes here say 160 to 120. For multiplayer, I believe it's 120 to 90. So now all the gunnery mobs, pistols, bombers, handguns, they went from 90 models or 120 models in multiplayer to 90, which is a big nerf actually. Because again, that's a lot less HP, it's less firepower, melee attack buffs, we don't really care about that. Additional hit points changed. Okay, so they got +4 HP per model. So though they lost a lot of models, they still do take an overall net loss in HP if I'm not mistaken, but they did get a little bit of a buff. So it's not as bad as it could have been. Reload skill changed from 0 to 10. Missile spread. Okay, base missile damage went from 10 to 12. Okay, so even though they did lose a fair amount of models, they got an HP increase, and also their base damage went up by 2. So it's a nerf, but it also isn't as bad. You know, honestly, I still think they're going to be good, and I still think players like Anticity are going to be very powerful. It's still nice to know that they're a little bit weaker, and they have less HP overall. That's something to take into account. We did see the Wood Elves actually dominate the Vampire Coast and the Everchosen. So, but again, I think a lot of that came down to misplays and bad positioning more so than actually the matchup as a whole. All right, Bombers lost models. They got extra damage though to compensate, and they lost AP damage. So they used to have 5 AP damage, now it's down to 4. But they got more base damage, 15 to 16. So it's like, yeah, I feel like you could have just straight up nerfed these guys and it wouldn't have been a problem. Like, instead of giving them the damage to compensate. Granted, I don't know. That might be a little bit brutal. It's hard to say. Handguns, same thing. They lost model count. They got base damage. They actually, wow, look at that. So handguns, though they lost 30 models overall. Wow, that's crazy. Didn't handguns always have less models? I don't know why it says 160 to 120 here. That doesn't seem right. Well, they did lose some models, I think, but their base damage went from 4 to 5. Their armor piercing damage went from 13 to 17. Damn, so that's almost like, did they really even get nerfed? That's a big damage buff. All right, well, I guess we'll see as the faction wars do unfold. I still think it's a nerf overall. The numbers is pretty significant, right? They die a lot quicker. Hand cannons, nobody cares about those really, but you know, the same things across the board. Lose models, get a buff to damage. Although it looks like the handguns didn't get an HP buff. No, they did. Okay. The handguns went from 46 to 50. Depth Guard are big winners here for the Vampire Coast. They got melee attack +1, charge bonus +5, melee defense +3, and they got a mass increase. So Depth Guard just an all-around buff with no cost increase or cost decrease. And same with polearms. They got melee defense, they got melee attack, and they got charge bonus, and they got a mass increase. And they also lost a little bit of bonus for Sarge, but honestly, for all the stats they're getting, it's pretty good. Base weapon damage increase for them also. Bloody Reaver Depth Guard, same thing. Luther Harkin on foot. So a really good nerf to Luther. Luther Harkin got -20 ammo on both his mount and his Terrorgeist. One of the most oppressive things that really these undead specialist players would do is they would just like delay the battle and sit Luther Harkin over your army and just like snipe your lords and characters. And it felt like he never ran out of ammo. You can still use a Gunnery White to give him extra ammo if you want to, do that. But yeah, I think it's really good to take away that ammo. It was pretty absurd. And Carronades get a little bit of an increase, which is fine. All right. Now we are on to... Actually, there are a fair amount of changes for Chaos, it looks like. For Vlad, Helman Gorst, cost reduction. Now, this is going to be interesting. And all jokes aside about Helman Gorst, I think we might actually see Gorst be used more. -200 for Gorst. If you're in a matchup in which you're facing an army that has shit missiles, they're not going to be shooting you at a distance, and you know it's going to be a blob fight, you can bring Helmengorst with absolutely nothing except the Mortis engine on him, and you're getting a Mortis engine for like 650 gold, which is actually quite a steal. Master Necromancer on the Corpse Cart got a cost reduction. Yeah, it looks like all the Corpse Carts got like minus 150 or minus 200, depending on which one. Now, Vlad is probably the biggest winner here for the Vampire counts. He got a charge bonus buff. He lost base damage, but gained AP. So now he does 430 overall with a massive AP variance there. So charge bonus, he causes terror, he does AP, and he got a little bit of a cost increase to correlate, but it doesn't say here, but the Von Karstein ring also now has infinite charges at 66% ward save, whereas before it was 90% with one charge. Vlad is much better, and I think he's a viable pick in many matchups now. Granted, I still prefer vampire mobility with my heroes, so I can drop zombie summons more dynamically across the battlefield, but Vlad, I think, is that's a huge change. Also, another one is Vargeist in general. Vargeist got some changes, and the big thing to note is Vargeist just got better AP. We don't really need to talk about it too much, but they're still super squishy. I think there was a lot of hype about them among a lot of the Ever-Chosen players and folks who were playing them in early access, but a lot of us quickly realized that they weren't as good as we thought. Still much better, but I would still approach them with caution because they're very squishy. They die to like anything with that has a stiff breeze, as they say. All right, and yeah, other changes aren't really of note. Warriors of Chaos. Forsaken got a base weapon. Ooh, Forsaken got a damage increase up to 44 or 46 from 44. Same thing with Demon Spew. Aspiring Champions. That's a nice change. Each of the Aspiring Champions got plus 40 HP. They got base weapon damage. They got an AP damage increase of plus 2. And that's nice. So base damage, yeah, Aspiring Champions might be something to consider. I actually had a game on my stream today where I was using Aspiring Champions with Chosen to the front line, and it was some heavy metal shit, man. Plus, also, there are matchups in which you need magic damage against Vampire counts, for example, against Karen Race and Hex Wraiths, against Wood Elves, against the Lost Sylvan Knights. So, and also, Aspiring Champs are pretty good against Dryads, too, and like base like infantry like that. So, yeah, maybe we'll see more Aspiring Champs. That's actually cool. I like that. Feral Manticore, nothing really significant. Archaon Never Chosen. It's just one of those weird things that I don't understand. Chosen got an increase to their base damage, and they also got extra AP damage. Now, those are basic Chosen, which is great. I think Chosen are really cool and a really awesome infantry unit. I've had success with them, and I'm happy to see that they got that change. Kolek Suneater, melee attack, and lost melee defense, same as all the other monsters. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's fine. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth had the same thing happen as well. Got plus 6 melee attack and minus 6 melee defense. So yeah, just making monsters a little bit more susceptible to like pokes and spears and also being hit by other monsters. Now, Sigvald, I think, is the biggest winner. Sigvald actually beats Orion in a duel. He's like one of the few characters that can, right? He's unbreakable now, more or less. I mean, he has 100 leadership. He doesn't break. He's not actually unbreakable, though. He gets better splash. His splash attacks got doubled, so it went from 4 to 8, so he's much better at crowd clearing. He also has perfect vigor, and instead of Foe Seeker and Deadly Onslaught, you have Slippery, Heroic Killing Blow. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. All jokes aside, Sigvald isn't bad now. I think when Chaos gets its DLC, and if they give Sigvald like a mount or something else like that, or some really unique Slanesh ability, I think he could be a real force to be reckoned with. Chaos Warriors with Halberds got a melee defense increase, so did the Chosen, and Marauders got charge bonus and also got a cost reduction. Those are Marauders with great weapons, mind you. Awesome stuff. I really like the Chaos changes. Sigvald's buff is nice. I think the Chosen change is really cool. Excited to try him out, man. So now for the Woodies. Glade Lord, leadership. Glade Lord and the Elven Steed got leadership and some Vanguard deployment. The Great Eagle got a leadership buff. Stop trying to make me use Great Eagles. It's not going to happen. Yeah, and they firing arc changed from 60 to 360, so the Glade Lord and an Eagle can 360 shoot now, much like the Sisters of the Twilight. The Glade Lord and the Forest Dragon leadership and firing arc 360. Durthu got Vanguard deployment. Spellsinger on foot. Just little minor mass changes here and there. Unicorn, again, mass changes, acceleration, deceleration changes. Nothing really to care about, in my opinion. I'm looking for anything of note. Great Eagle, Orion. Dude, Orion is such a raid boss now, guys. And I didn't realize this at first. So Orion lost missile resist. He went from 20% to 0, but CA actually gave him 20% physical resist instead. So Orion's base physical is 20, and then when he gets his item, the Cloak of Isha, he gets 44% ward save. So if you don't have magic damage, Orion's going to be having like 66 plus ward save against you in the late game when he's almost dead. It's really, really hard to kill him. I think Orion is probably the strongest Lord in the Wood Elf roster, especially with these changes and the fact that he can throw on the move and how well he synergizes with the Wood Elf Rush, which I think is one of the better ways to play them now. Orion's just a beast. Treekin lost melee defense a little bit, which is fine. I mean, they're already super tanky. Who cares? Their base damage went from 40 to 60. They got an AP damage increase. They got extra splash attacks in Vanguard. Treekin got huge buffs. I still don't know about them. Honestly, most of my builds I've been working on for competitive Wood Elves do not use Treekin. However, I think these changes could make them viable in matchups in which you're expecting to be rushed yourself. They hit a lot harder. They can destroy infantry with light armor, and are still very tanky. Firebark Elder is pretty much the same thing, which is fine. And a lot of the tree units like Tree Men got Vanguard deployment. Dryads got a melee defense buff, a little bit faster run speed. Branch Wraith got run speed buffs, charge speed buffs. Well, that's a big nerf. Wow. Weight Watchers accuracy went from 15 to 10, and they got a cost increase. I don't know if a lot of people saw that. They're still really good. Weight Watchers are still masterful. And I still think they're going to be a staple of Wood Elf play, but I think that's a warranted nerf. Hawkeyes of Jakira got a cost increase. Deepwood Scouts, calibration nonsense, which I don't care about. And again, a lot of insignificant changes elsewhere. So that is all the factions. Now we go from the Menace below. So wind up time changed from 1 to 5 seconds. Okay, so that's for summoning rats. And I wonder if that's the wind up time changed from 1 to 5 seconds. Oh, I wonder if that's more so for campaign. Okay, that's fine. Realm of Souls from Ushapti. Wind up time. Axe of Dargo removed recharge. Oh, so the Axe of Dargo recharges out of melee now. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And it lasts longer, 16 to 19 seconds. Gitsnick, Skarsnik's. No, that's not. That's Grimgore's axe. Yeah, same thing. So it looks like they removed the melee condition from a lot of these weapons. You can see the Hellfire Sword, the Pennant of Slanesh, the Dolores Blade, which of course is on the Green Knight, Slayer of Kings. They removed all the melee conditions for these items to be viable. I think that's really good. It's kind of obnoxious, really, like because a lot of times, these Footlords are going to be forced to chase someone, and at that time it's not recharging. It's kind of stupid. Whereas many of the other items like Libra Bubonicus are recharging nonstop, right? So I think that's a good balancing change we see across the board here. Witch's Brew, base damage from 60 to 50, duration from 47 to 20. Who cares? Gaze of Cain got some minor changes. And again, if you guys really want to like micro look into this, just feel free to pull it up, obviously. And this, I'm going to try and go through the more of the significant changes. Kazrak got some big ones. Scourge got a decrease to the overall duration, but it lost its melee attack and melee defense buffs. But you get plus 32 bonus for infantry, plus 25% base damage, plus 50% splash, and 25% armor piercing. Definitely a buff. Kazrak's Dark Mail also got a big buff. So you lose the armor from it, but you get ward save now. So you get 20% ward save while he's fighting instead of armor and magic resist, which I think is huge. That's really good. You guys heard about the Von Karstein ring. I obviously told you about that. Grombrindle's Has No Fear is different. The radius went from map wide to 55. Wait. Oh, wow. I didn't notice this earlier when I was playing with him. Grombrindle Has No Fear. Radius from map wide to 55 meters. It now gives melee defense. Oh, that's badass. Hell yeah. That's really good. I think that even further solidifies Grombrindle as probably the best pick for the Dwarves. Also, another big change, all the runes from the Dwarves are targetable now, so you can like cast them like a spell at range. It doesn't radiate around the runesmith, which is a really big buff. So Dwarves honestly came away with some decent stuff here in this. And again, a bunch of micro changes to all these different items, and just like 25 to 50 on Soul Stealer, just really, really minor changes. So if you guys want to look through these, that's fine. I know there was a buff to like the Lucky Skull Helm from Tretch, but Tretch sucks, so who cares about that? Transformation of Kadan, Manticore Summon went from 14 to 18. Drowned Dead got a cost increase, which I think is good. I think Vampire Coast they got some nerfs here, but I'm curious to see how they'll perform. I still think Vampire Coast is going to be a top tier faction and S tier faction, but they certainly have a couple more weaknesses now, which is good. The Skaven Plague Monk Summon got a cost increase. Vermintide. So summons got more or less increases here. Burning Head, wow, look at that. Base Vortex damage went from 24 to 14. But really, like, that's not that big of a deal. I think it'll still be good. Like, because usually the stuff you're killing with it is like chaff anyways. Yeah. But when you upgrade it, goes from 24 to 21. So Overcasted Burning Head took a very minor nerf. And the exact same thing if you guys see here for Pendulum. Pendulum took a substantial hit, 72 to 36 on damage. But if you overcast it, no, actually Pendulum just got nerfed across the board. Wow, that's actually a big nerf to Pendulum. I have to rethink that, using that as often. Maybe go back to Lore of Fire, just like find some other option. Honestly, Heavens is probably better with just like the Wind Blast from a cost effectiveness and damage standpoint. And Seafang, same thing happened. Seafang took a little bit of a hit. And that's it. So those are all the changes. That was balls deep. I skimmed through a lot of those in this video. Still almost an hour long. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What changes to you are the most significant? For me, I'm so hyped about Grombrindle. I think like the melee defense buff and also the unbreakable nature of Sigvald's changes are huge. Like I love those kind of changes that make underused characters like in Lords and things like that just more viable. But let me know in the comment section below, what did you guys think is the biggest, most significant change? What really got you hyped? Is it you all about that Khazrak life? Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, who is? But yeah, it was awesome. Thank you guys for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed this Dreaded Haggard podcast / patch notes analysis. And we'll be back with tournament streams and all sorts of stuff in the near future. Thank you guys so much for joining. And you guys have an excellent night or day. And take care.